Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free movie review of Weapons. Going to keep it very, very spoiler-free. Weapons is now entering that overhyped stage because when it first came out, opening weekend, theaters were packed. Our theater was packed. Everybody was going crazy for this movie. Big word of mouth. But now here we are. You're going to start to see those people who are going to witness it now, and they're going to be like, that's what everybody was raving about. That movie is so overhyped. But that is okay with me because I would rather a really great movie be overhyped than have to fight for a really great movie that nobody is seeing, because there have been those this year where I'm like, everybody, you got to go check out this movie, and everybody just doesn't want to. The movie doesn't do great at the box office. And then maybe 6 months down the line when it's on a streaming service, then people start to catch wind of it. You could even argue maybe that's what happened a little bit with Barbarian. Bam, that cemented Zach Cregger as a really great director. People started to see how much of a visionary he is, and he is now up there on the horror directors I'm really paying attention to. I think Jordan Peele is still at the top of that list because he is somebody who is more established than some of the other people working now. But he was a person who wanted this movie, fired some of his management team because he could not secure this film. And now I know exactly why he wanted this movie, because it is next level horror. And Zach Cregger is somebody I really enjoy now because he's only 44 years old. But just hearing him talk about this movie, how much attention to detail he has. So what this movie is about, if you haven't heard about it yet, 17 kids go missing in this one classroom. Julia Garner is the teacher in the classroom. The parents want answers. They are blaming her. And it is up to this town to unravel the mystery why all these kids went missing at 2:17 in the morning. Exact same time, exact same night, in the exact same way. But nobody knows exactly why. It also stars Josh Brolin, who plays one of the missing kids' dads. Alden Ehrenreich, who is a police officer in the town. Benedict Wong. So right there you have Silver Surfer, you have Thanos, you have the guy from Ironheart, and you also have Wong from Doctor Strange. Also rounding out the cast, you have Austin Abrams, who plays a junkie in the movie. And let me just start with the cast. Just perfectly casted. I couldn't see anybody else in any of these roles. And I know Pedro Pascal was supposed to play the role of Josh Brolin. I am so glad he didn't get it. And it's not that I don't like Pedro Pascal. It's not that I have Pedro fatigue. I watched all 3 of his big movies this summer. He's a fantastic actor. Because I actually think that if Pedro Pascal was in the same role, it would not have hit the same way. There was just something about his character that was more nuanced than I feel that Pedro Pascal could pull off right now. And the reason he didn't do it is because he had too many projects, obviously, with all the commitments he has right now. So they had to recast almost this entire movie, except for Austin Abrams, who was there from the very beginning. And not only did they give great performances, their characters were so well written and so well developed that I could put myself into the shoes of any of these people in this town, and I would know what they love, what they hate, what triggers them. They all have very unique flaws, which is something that I really took away from Weapons, is that there's not one character that is inherently the protagonist. Nobody in this movie is necessarily a good or bad person in the story, because I think they've all been through something traumatic. They all have some kind of blame pointed to them at some point because of something they've done wrong, that there's not one person that you're necessarily rooting for. And I think having that nuance of humans that have some good qualities about them, but also can be kind of shady in other ways, is what makes this movie feel more real life. That if this actually happened in a town, you wouldn't just have a good guy, a good Samaritan, out there trying to figure this thing out. There would be some very mixed feelings between everybody in this town, and that is really what you see. You don't just see one shiny, perfect person trying to figure this thing out, trying to save the day. So not only were all their performances on the screen, I just believe all their characters were so well written on the page, which goes back to what I say about Zach Cregger, knowing his vision before he goes into his movie, not trying to find it in the process, and I think that is what really resonated with me. And not only that, but the movie just instantly dives into it. You start with the girl explaining the story, how everybody went missing, and then you are right there in it. I love the format of the movie as it dives into each character individually, which is probably another reason why you do get to know these characters so well, is because it fully dives into where they were, where all these things started to happen, and show you all the things they have going on in their life. It doesn't really waste a whole lot of time with this crazy backstory of what happened before they went missing, diving into the characters' backstories that way, because it doesn't tell you, it just shows you by just letting you live a day in their life. And I think that way of handling the story was perfect. And I feel like that added way more to the mystery because the movie was so unpredictable. And in an era of filmmaking right now, especially in horror, where sometimes you can tell, okay, I kind of see where this story is going. We're going to get to this final battle. We're going to all have it figured out by the end. I didn't know who was about what. I didn't know what was going on, but I was so in for the ride that in the 2 hour runtime, I never checked out. The horror elements were also fantastic. And I kind of knew going into it, it wasn't going to be a full on supernatural jump scare movie, although it did have those elements in there as well. It was really more of a horror mystery. I also feel like the movie didn't use a bunch of cheap tactics to scare you. There were some more of the traditional elements, a couple of jump scares here and there. But I think the movie just had a sinister DNA to it that, aside from a couple of things early on, it didn't really rely on that. And it also did a fantastic job of not showing you everything in the trailer, which is something that horror movies are notorious for, because there were some elements that I saw from different portions of the movie in the trailer. But even then, having all the pieces to this puzzle kind of laid out for you, you still had no idea how those things were going to play out. I think Austin Abrams was low-key the MVP of this movie, even though his character didn't have the most massive role out of anybody else. I would still say Julia Gardner was my favorite part of the movie, Josh Brolin right up there with her. But I think his presence brought something that was just completely unexpected out of anybody else in the town. You don't really see characters like that. And he also brought a little bit of comedic relief. That was another thing I wasn't really expecting. There were moments in this movie where people were laughing, where even at its most sinister times, there was a little bit of levity. And it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't forced. It kind of happened naturally. There weren't moments that it felt like, oh, this is a punchline moment, or this is something we're going to do deliberately to make you laugh. But I think just the way these moments were sprinkled in, where you kind of took yourself back a little bit and thought, hey, that's kind of funny. It made me laugh. It made everybody else laugh. And I think Austin Abrams' character was a big portion of those laughs. And I think what I love the most about Zach Cregger now, that he's going to be somebody that I pay attention to every single film, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Barbarian. I enjoyed some elements of that movie. It felt a little bit unconventional to me, much like some people are going to go watch Weapons and feel like, oh, this is so overhyped. That was kind of Barbarian for me. What I do love about him is how much he just has a passion for filmmaking. He said his three biggest influences going into this movie were Magnolia, Hereditary, and Prisoners, which I was like, those are all contemporary movies that I feel like the general public has still seen. So to have somebody making movies with those types of influences and be able to make something that pulls from those inspirations but feel entirely different, I think we're in good hands when it comes to horror. I think we're also in good hands when it comes to horror because of all the success that Warner Brothers has been having, which I've been telling you guys. Horror is where it is when it comes to creativity. It's also where it is where it comes to strong female leads. Oftentimes, that is the only place I can go where I can see somebody like Julia Garner have a role where they're not typecast in any way, where their characters aren't pigeonholed. But Warner Brothers became the first studio in history to have 6 consecutive $40+ million openings. And if you look at this list, you have Minecraft with $162.8 million, Sinners with $48 million, Final Destination Bloodlines with $50 million, F1 with $57 million, Superman with $125 million, and Weapons with $42.5 million. And out of those 6 movies, 50% of them are original movies. So Warner Brothers still chases those big IPs. If you look at Superman, Final Destination obviously is a long-running franchise. Minecraft is a video game adaptation. But the thread in all these movies is that they also have really great directors who I believe truly are visionaries. And I think that is something that they have prioritized more than other studios and is why they are having so much success, is they are finding filmmakers that know how to create a spectacle, and they also make movies where it starts with story first. It just has to. James Gunn, who is a part of Warner Brothers, is the biggest proponent of that right now, saying we're not going to make a superhero movie unless we have the story. We're not just going to put some character out into the theaters because it has a big fan demand. We're not throwing in random cameos or post-credit scenes just to introduce characters. If there's not a story there, we're not making the movie, and I think that is something that Marvel and other studios need to learn. In this world where a lot of people say there's superhero fatigue, people have been saying that everything is a reboot and a remake. I think probably ever since I've been alive, people have been saying nothing is original anymore. And those movies still make a lot of money. It's not right now that we're sick of everything being part of a franchise or being a reboot. Is that we are sick of mediocre movies with lame stories that go nowhere. Even Josh Brolin was now doing press for this movie and saying, I don't get on streaming services. Everything on there is so boring. Go see a movie like Weapons that is truly unique and worthy of your time. So I think for Warner Brothers, they have figured that out with finding great directors who know how to make these great stories come to life. So Weapons for me was an almost perfect movie. It's as close as you can get. I think I've just been more hesitant now about handing out fives because now I truly feel that a 5 comes with time. It comes with seeing a movie maybe for a second time in theaters or spending more time with it at home, that it becomes one I throw into the rotation. So I feel like this is one that could grow, but I also think that Zach Cregger hasn't put out his best movie yet. So for Weapons, I give it 4 out of 5. Kids running with their arms out like they're holding heavy bags of groceries. 4.5 out of 5 of those.